Hey guys, this is Jeff Conti, your YouTube knife mentor. So I'm gonna show, I'm gonna show you the next steps to go from design on paper to the design in steel. So here we go. Let me get this turned around a little bit. So we're gonna put the pattern on the plastic, and we are going to draw in the striker because there's a gap, a space on the tang that needs the striker, and then we'll cut it all out, and then we'll put the pattern on the steel, and we will cut out the profile of the knife. I'm going to use a bandsaw. We'll also cut out the striker spot. Then we will sand the profile or the outer edge of the knife to shape, and we'll file in the striker spot. It'll be a little bit rough from the bandsaw. Then we'll go ahead and cut and fit our striker so it's ready for soldering. We're not going to solder it yet. Then we're going to lay out the skeletonization holes for the handles with our pins, spots. Then we'll drill the pins, and then we'll skeletonize or drill the skeleton holes. We'll prepare the handle for the taper by center lining on the butt and then hollow grinding a rough taper. And then we'll actually flat sand the taper onto the knife handle. And then we will do a center line on the blade. We'll grind the blade. We'll finish sand the blade. We'll heat, treat, and temper the knife. And then we're going to freshen the surfaces of the striker space so we can get it ready for solder. And then we're going to go ahead and check the fit of the striker and then solder the striker in place. Then we're going to flat sand the striker so that it's flush with the tang. We're going to rough sand the rest of the tang because it's got heat treat surface on it, and I call that freshening it. Then we'll prepare our scales, make sure that they're flat, and we'll drill the pinholes for the loveless rivets. Then we will dry assemble the scales in place, and we will figure out where the striker is supposed to go and how we're going to make that exposed. Then we'll go ahead and epoxy and clamp our scales in place and secure the loveless rivets. Then we'll finish the handle to shape. I'm probably going to texture it to 36 grit, and then we'll mark the blade and sharpen it. So it'll take us a little while, but that's what we're going to do. I'm kind of glad I did this because I had previously forgotten to include the striker in the design. As you can see here, there's no space for a striker on the handle, so when I go down to do the pattern, we'll have to add that in. So anyway, now it's on my process, and you may want to do the same thing. That way you don't forget something or do something backwards and then wind up with a problem. So there we go, and we will see you at the next part. And you're saying, wait a minute, don't throw that new pattern away. Well, I'm not going to throw it away. This is 3M Super 77, and shook it up real good, and now I'm going to spray it onto my pattern. And the reason that I'm spraying it onto the drawing side is because I want to have the plane side up when I lay it down here. There we go. On my plastic. Yeah, looking pretty good. 3M is really good stuff, real easy to use. I will turn my spray can upside down here in just a moment and clear the nozzle so that it doesn't get plugged up. That's the only way the dang thing will keep working all year long, year after year. I don't use a lot of it, so. Okay, now I'm gonna have to cut it out, and I can't do that holding the camera. So the next thing you'll see is this piece cut out, and it'll be laid on my 154 cm. I changed my mind. I'm gonna show you a little bit. This plastic is just your basic thin plastic. It cuts real easy. with a pair of scissors, and so it's easy to trace the knife design out, but then you have a more rigid edge when you start to scribe it onto your steel, and I'll show you that in a minute. So here we are. It didn't take much. As you can see, this is 2-inch wide steel. My hand is shaking. I don't know why. It must be getting older. Anyway, and you can see I got a pretty nice black line, and not too hard to follow unless you can't see it in the light. But anyway, so it shouldn't be difficult to cut out on the bandsaw. So there's a lot of ways to do this. When I was young and I didn't have any materials, I would drill holes all the way along my profile, and then I would cut through those holes with a hacksaw. And every time I cut through those, if I needed to, I would stick a flat tip screwdriver in the end and bend it out a little bit to give my hacksaw a little more room so that I could manipulate it to get through these curves, you know. And then I would, after that, I would go after it with a file or a grinder or something to get it down to my profile line. So right now I'm gonna go over to the bandsaw because I'm older and have more money, and now I have more tools. And as you progress, you will get older and have more money and have more tools, and it will make life easier for you. So here we go. As is often the case, I wind up making a knife and I sell it, and so I'm able then to go buy tools that I don't have. So if I sell a knife for, I don't know, let's say it cost me $50 to make the knife, and I sell the knife for $100, I now have $50 to go buy more materials, and I have $50 towards a new tool. I don't sell my knives for $100 anymore, but those of you who are getting started, you may find yourself starting out on the low end of sales. But my point is, this saw, an older, this is a 60s vintage Rockwell Model 14, meaning it is 14 inches from the blade to the back. It's called the throat there. These saws now there's a lot of them, and they got really good motors and really good solid structures underneath, and so they're really easy to find, I think, and really high quality. The Chinese ones I steer you away from, because unfortunately you can see it looks like a good saw until you get underneath where you find the bearings and all of the cradle and everything that makes the saw work, and you realize, yeah, it's, you know. But if it gets you up to the point where you can upgrade your saw, then that works too. So I don't want to be the sad Sally. This is a really great saw, and you can see it's a jet, which is, I think, probably made in China. And you can upgrade the motor on your own at another time when it's, so you'll have a better motor. But this is a perfectly good saw for cutting out on the bandsaw. You can see I keep mine in a vertical position, and I keep the throat plate on there, and I can cut out the knife on this bandsaw. It's a shorter blade, they don't last as long. And so since I'm here, let me talk for just a minute. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. I don't buy cheap blades anymore. I'm not saying Lennox is the best that there is, but let me tell you, these Lennox, what the heck is it called? Oh, Die-Master 2. The Lennox Die-Master 2. Holy smokes. And I've downgraded. I used to use a 12 tooth. Now I'm using a 14 tooth, which means it cuts quite a bit slower, but I get fewer kickbacks. I get fewer problems when I'm actually cutting out my blade. And so I don't mind going a little slower. So that's up to you how aggressive a tooth formation you want. And they have some that are multiple tooth formations, 14 and 12 or whatever. But for me, I just use a straight Lennox Die-Master 2 14 tooth. And this is a 93.5 inch long blade, but you can see here that you could put in a 6-inch riser, which adds another foot onto the length of your blade, which means they actually last a little bit longer, and you get a deeper depth of cut, like if you were going to use, do big cuts on wood or something like that. So here, I'll just turn it on, and I got the light already hooked up to the electricity so that it comes on when the saw comes on, and then I always work with good lighting. So I'll be right back. I wanted to show you, I use this tool a lot. As you can see, it's been cut into a lot. So in this case, you know, I've got a straight cut and I can't just make a straight bend, so I'm just going to cut that out. And I can use my fingers here. I'm just demonstrating the push tool. And you can see how slow my blade cuts. If there's no clankety clanks, there's no dull teeth. And you know what? This doesn't take that long and I don't mind. So there you go. In terms of cutting things out on the bandsaw, you can see I stay right up close to my line. I'll get some of that swarf out of there. Because it saves time when I go to my grinder. But whatever you do, don't grind on this side of your line, right? That's where your knife is. You would rather grind or file this extra off than damage the actual design of your knife. So if you can't stay close and not get into your actual knife blade, you know, stay a little ways away from it, you know, maybe, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch or something. But I can basically, this little fine line right here, I can basically split that line with my saw blade. But I've been doing it for 40 years. So anyway, there you go. I'm going to show you a little bit. You can see that I started my cut from down here and just brought it. You can make small arcs, well, large arcs, I guess, on a bandsaw, but you can't make small arcs, the real tight ones. So you can get a little bit of an arc in there, and then you can see on this one, I stopped right there, and then I started again, and so now I'm going to cut this little wedge out. Again, I can use my little tool here. And I can hold the camera. And I'm going to bring my cut just down to the base of where my last cut ended. And I'm going to come right up to my line. So now you can see that I've come right up to my line. And I can go back to this cut. The old piece will move out of the way and let me take a step away from my line and keep cutting. I'm trying to do it one-handed and failing somewhat miserably. So I went back and started another small cut. So now I have a bit of a wedge there, a little wider cut, so I can move around and hopefully connect to my original cut. And notice this other piece is going to start to move, so I'll actually probably, yeah, look at that. Okay, so I was able to take a pretty good cut, you know, pretty close to my pattern line. That just saves time when it comes to doing your cleanup work. As you can see, I took a pretty nice rounded cut here, and then I had to cut straight in and then cut over and then cut over again, and so now I've got a little point there. I can just go right in and probably I can't quite do it without violating my line. So let me come back to this one. And I'll come up about halfway and start angling towards the meeting point. So, anyway, I'm lazy. Let the machine do the work, right? So here we are. It came out pretty good. I'm pretty dang close to everything. It's looking good. It'll take a little bit of cleanup, but certainly not much. I was thinking, you know, about saving parts of the knife that come off, and of course I would not save out those little bits. But I do save these pieces. I have a, whoops, I have a box that is set aside for cut-offs. One of my old knife boxes. And inside you can see I have little spaces where pieces I can save. Anyway, I do that because from time to time I have a tool that I want to make or something I want to do, and then I've got a little piece and I don't need to go cut it off of a nice chunk of steel. I've already got small bits. After a while you accumulate so many that you're just going to, you know, throw them all away. But up front, and if you're ever interested in making miniatured blades, which I did for a long time, you know, my blades were, well, the blades were down, you know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And then, you know, overall they were maybe 1.5 inches or something like that. A lot of fun. You don't have to heat treat them if you don't want to. I did, but you don't have to. So anyway, that's my thoughts on where I'm at so far. Well, this is Jeff Conti, your YouTube knife mentor. Go out and have fun making a knife.